Automatic Marketing Show, where we share tips, strategies, best practices, success stories to help you build your marketing machine and generate more leads and more clients for your business. My name's Danny Decker. I'm here with Daniel Bowden. And Daniel, today we're going to kind of go deep into different strategies to use on Facebook ads, which is kind of really, really fun. This is the heart of what we do at the Automatic Marketing Agency. So break that down, Daniel. Like, obviously people understand Facebook ads, but we kind of have multiple different strategies. Break that down.
Yeah. So this is talking about the strategy almost before you're getting into setting up your Facebook ad, because the mentality that you're going to take on is going to change depending on which one of these strategies you use. We have two main strategies. One's called a Call Me Now campaign, where you want people to reach out immediately. You know, they're more ready to take action. And then the next one is called a lead nurture campaign. These are people that are more top of the funnel. They're looking for some education maybe. They're not quite ready to buy yet or commit, but this is an opportunity for you to kind of get in front of them and present yourself as a valuable resource, as a valuable service that hopefully they'll buy into later on.
Yeah, love it. And kind of the way we think about it, I think most business owners, when they think about running digital ads, most people think about Call Me Now style ads, right? Where like the goal of the ad campaign is to get somebody to call you or book a consultation or visit your store or whatever, right? Like that's kind of the...
It's like all the billboards, like, call this number now. Yeah,
exactly. That's kind of like the default.
Yeah.
And so I think people obviously understand the value of that. Like that's, you know, that's about directly generating new customers.
Right.
But let's talk a little bit. I think the lead nurture side is where, you know, a lot of folks out there maybe haven't thought about this as much.
Yeah.
So break that down a little bit. Like, kind of how do you structure a lead nurture campaign? How should people be thinking about a lead nurture campaign?
Yeah. So with a lead nurture campaign, you're going to want to start with what's called a lead magnet. And this is any sort of kind of offer or like free resource that you can kind of get their attention with. So maybe you have a blog article that you could turn into a nice PDF and let them download for free. Or maybe you have a checklist somewhere, or just a YouTube video, or some sort of valuable piece of content that you can exchange for their email and maybe their phone number as well, and their contact information in general. Yeah.
And so that's we refer to it. A lot of people refer to it as a lead magnet. Mm-hmm. And so the idea is coming up with some piece of really valuable content. Yeah. And I think an area where people sometimes go wrong on this is they assume that you don't have to work all that hard to get somebody to give you their contact information for something free. They're like, it's free. I don't have to work all that hard. But the truth is, and we know this because we see it every day, people are really reluctant to share their contact information.
Yep.
So even though you're giving this thing away for free, you still have to sell it as if you're asking for money for it, right? Yep. Because people are very hesitant to give up their contact information because they generally know, you know, if I give you my email address, you might sell it. You're probably going to follow up with me. Like, you have to really give people a compelling reason. And so it starts with, to your point, it starts with selecting a really valuable lead magnet. Yep. We've seen that checklists tend to work really well. Mm-hmm. I think, I'm curious what you think. I think what I'm seeing is that people want something that they can actually act on, right? Yeah. Like, I think there was a time when like ebooks were really popular. I think now I'm seeing a trend where people are like, I don't want an 80-page ebook.
Yeah.
I'd rather have a 1-page or a 2-page checklist or worksheet or something that I can actually like execute on. What do you think?
Yeah. No, I agree. And even just for myself, whenever I'm, you know, getting hit with these lead magnets as a consumer, that's the sort of thing I gravitate towards, is like actionable steps, which is what, you know, a checklist does, or some sort of guide or worksheet, like you're saying, that like is actually going to give me practical tips that I can implement.
Yeah. And there was a time when it was like the strategy was usually just overwhelm people with the amount of value you're giving them. Or like, it's a 3-hour video, you know, lesson and a 400-page manual and like all of this stuff, and it's so valuable and there's so much content. And I think in today's world, people are just like, I don't have time for that. Yeah. That sounds overwhelming. Why would I want that?
Yeah.
And so we've generally seen both in our own marketing and in the campaigns we build for our clients that, short, actionable checklist, worksheet, you know, 5-minute video lesson, right? Digestible is actually better. But then the other piece of it is it's got to solve a specific problem for somebody. Like you can't just be like, watch my 5-minute video about, you have to give people a compelling reason. We talk about how it's got to solve a specific problem for somebody. So an example, we work a lot with family attorneys. And so, we will often create a lead magnet, along the lines of, the checklist, it's your divorce checklist, right? You need to do these things before you file for divorce or, do this, a checklist of what you should do before a child custody hearing or, right? Like checklists that solve a very specific problem and reach people at a very specific, like, point in their customer journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And, maybe someone's listening to this and they have like all these different ideas of things they could make a lead magnet. Well, take each one of those ideas and turn those each into one lead magnet, and then you have, 5 different ones.
Well, and that's such a great point too, because, we're always encouraging our clients to test multiple offers, right? Because sometimes you come up with what you think is just the best idea, and it's just this amazing lead magnet, and it flops.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, this other thing that you didn't think was as great, it turns out that works even better. So we typically want our clients to be testing 2 or 3 different lead magnets. So that's a really good point. But now let's talk about sort of the second half of the equation, right? Because you create a lead magnet, you get people to download the lead magnet, great. But then what happens from there?
Yeah.
How do we turn them into an actual customer?
Yeah. So that's kind of where email comes in, or whatever method you can use to, whatever contact information you got from them, whether it's email or phone number, use that same method to reach back out to them. They downloaded your free resource, and then maybe you don't want them to fall off the map entirely. You want to stay engaged with them. And so you can automate some emails to follow up, the next day, a couple days out, a couple weeks out, just to stay top of mind with them. You can pick up the phone and call them and say, hey, I saw you downloaded this free resource. Like, what can I help you with? Like, why did you download it? Let's see what sort of interest is there. And then, you need to make sure that your follow-up system is really good so that you're not just kind of wasting all this contact information that you're receiving on the front end.
No, that's really well said, because I think in an ideal world, somebody downloads your lead magnet and they watch it or read it and they're like, oh my God, that was so amazing. Let me call these people right now.
Yeah.
And of course, the lead magnet should be created in such a way that you make that possible, right? Like we include contact information and a call to action.
Yep.
But most of the time, to your point, like they're not going to. They may not even read it right away. They may read it later, or they may read it and be like, that's great. But, again, they're not quite ready to have a consultation or anything like that. So I think you said it. I think email follow-up campaigns are super important. I think reaching out, if your state allows it, if privacy, laws allow it in your situation, allow you to text people, call people. And I think the key too, though, is recognizing that these people, you have to understand where they are in the buying journey, right? So like if they downloaded this free educational thing, following up immediately and being like, hey, we want to sell you something, isn't necessarily the right way to do it. And so I like the way you phrased it, which is like, the context should usually be, hey, thanks so much for downloading this thing. Do you have any questions about it? Is there anything we can do to support? And kind of transition. Eventually you get to a point where you are, making a more direct ask. But like initially understand that like they downloaded this thing because they wanted to educate themselves. And so I think following up with the appropriate tone is just really important.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So let's talk just slightly for a minute here just about, the situations where a lead nurture campaign maybe makes sense versus some of the situations where a Call Me Now campaign makes sense.
Yeah.
How would you think that through if, we have a client or talking to a business owner and they're like, which one should I do? Where do you start with that?
Yeah. That's a good question. I think part of it depends on how well-known you are in a community. Like if you're targeting a new market, you might not have as much brand recognition. And so a lead magnet can be a good like informational, educational way to kind of bring some brand awareness. I think for a Call Me Now campaign, it also might depend on the service that you're offering. Some people maybe just the nature of the service or the nature of the problem that the prospect is in, they might just take longer to act on that.
Yeah. I think the customer journey is really important, like you're getting at. So again, I always come back to legal examples because we work with so many law firms, and it's like, okay, let's say your lead magnet is a let's say it's a webinar or a PDF or something, but your client is sitting in jail, and like they are not interested in registering for your webinar next week. Yeah. They are interested in a lawyer that can answer the phone right away and help them right away. Yeah. And so that type of situation where it's a high urgency situation, Call Me Now campaign is going to work a lot better. Mm-hmm. And typically in a high urgency situation, you know, that sitting in jail is extreme, right? But also, you know, maybe your spouse filed for divorce or a loved one just passed away and so now you're dealing with their estate, right? High urgency situations. Yep. Versus there are other situations that are just frankly not as urgent. You know, like if you're an estate planning attorney, to go back to that example, and, you know, generally speaking, you know, when you're talking to somebody about preparing their will and all of that, generally speaking, it's not super urgent, right? It's something that, and that's part of the problem, people keep putting it off. Mm-hmm. And so that's where, you know, coming on a little too strong with a Call Me Now campaign, it may not work. Versus if you just gave somebody, you know, a checklist that they can read on their own time and start thinking about estate planning, you know, that's where they are in the buying cycle. So you got a better chance of getting their information. And then, of course, you keep marketing to them and hopefully, you know, you bring them into a consult and sign them as a client. Right. But I do want to make one more point. Everything we just said is speculation. The really important thing is that you test them both. Yeah. And so with the vast majority of our clients, unless it's absolutely crystal clear that a Call Me Now campaign is absolutely the way to go, generally speaking, we like to test both. Yeah. Because, you know, you never know until you test.
Yeah, and part of that is you may be doing a lead nurture campaign, but then they're ready to buy, you know. Even though you think they may have been more top of funnel, they're actually further down. And so you have that side prepared as well as the lead nurture side.
Exactly. Or vice versa. You may think, hey, my clients, my customers are just ready to go right away. And you find out that, no, they actually do want to do some research. They do want to spend some time thinking about it before they're ready to move forward. And so it turns out that actually a lead nurture campaign turns out being long-term more profitable than a Call Me Now campaign. Yeah. But again, I will reiterate, most of the time we like to run both. Yep. Because typically what you find in most markets is a mix of people that are urgent and ready to go right now, and they're going to respond to Call Me Now messaging, and then you have people that are earlier in the buying cycle. So usually both work well together.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool. Well, that was really good. I think that was really practical for people. Obviously, you know, Facebook ads, super important. We talk about it all the time, but really cool to kind of break down kind of the two different approaches. And like you said, all of this thought process, like these are decisions you make well before you even sit down and actually start creating an ad campaign. So yeah. You know, whether you're working with an ad agency, you're trying to do this stuff yourself, a really important part of the planning process is sitting down and thinking this stuff through strategically before you start writing copy for an ad or, you know, get into Ad Manager or any of that.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, cool. Well, thanks for joining us. Daniel, thanks for being here, and we will see you all next week.